please, go to Matthew chapter 34, or in fact it's not 34, it's 24.
Yes, sir. Okay.
It's 24. Now, and we're going to read from verse 29. Now we're going to come back to it, but we're going to read it as an opening to set the stage of where we are going. So Matthew chapter 24, 29, let us read.
This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days.
Now, we must understand that this is what would be called a double entendre or a double connotation, because it says immediately after the tribulation of those days. The two contexts it could be seen in is this: immediately after the present tribulation of the days that we're in, this is what comes next. But it can also be read historically.
That's right.
Which is immediately after the tribulation of those days, meaning tribulation that we, Israel, has gone through by way of slavery. That was tribulation. That was great tribulation. Has there ever been any other tribulation documented in history?
No.
Greater than that, with 200 million Negroes being killed.
That's right.
Now remember, when we speak about that, we have to include the Arab slavery.
That's right.
It's not just the transatlantic, that's
Right.
part of it.
Right, sir.
But there's two parts. Yes, sir. So the sub-Sahara slavery is also a pivotal part because it was the genesis.
That's right.
Now, why do we say that? Because it takes place in semi, as you say here, modern times. We're not going back to the biblical period, going back to the Babylonian and the Egyptians and the Persian Medes and so on and so on. We're going just back to kind of a modern era time.
Yes.
So when we're dealing with the sub-Saharan and then dealing with the transatlantic, we're dealing with things that have only happened over the last 500-600 years.
That's right.
And it's brutal what has happened. So that has been a tribulation for us.
Yes, it has.
So then when we read it now from the top again, officers.
The book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light.
Read.
And the stars shall fall from heaven.
Now the stars that fall from heaven, it's not what you think. There are some camps that say that's Israel falling from heaven. But we will explain it in more depth as we go along later. Let's read.
And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
Read.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
Now the signs, you have to make note of that. What are the signs?
Come.
There are signs that lets us know. This is why we have to become studious in watching newsreels.
That's right.
We have to see what's going on around the world. You know, some churches say, I don't want to know what's going on around the world.
Yeah.
All I want to know is what Jesus said. Well, then you're going to be caught unawares.
Yes.
Because those things have been put in place by our Father. Sometimes we put the devil on everything, thinking that it's the devil this and the devil that. But don't you get it? It's the Father who's making these things happen, because He knows some of us aren't going to be awoken.
Right.
Some of us aren't going to have our eyes open. So He uses other mediums to show us what's going on. Read.
Salaki, the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And He shall send His angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together His elect from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other.
Now, when we see that now, it's really compacted in the book of Matthew. In just these 3 verses.
That's right.
Pretty much a whole lot of what goes on in the book of Revelation with John's writing,
right.
and also with Isaiah.
Come.
So the first thing that we must gather is that the scriptures speaks about 3 woes. Now when I was researching this, and if you Google it, you check it out online, and this is very important teaching, so I do need you to really pay attention.
That's right.
There are 3 woes. The 3 woes, online, you will not find the answer. But I checked them all out. What does the 3 woes mean? And you know what? They come up with all sorts of things, but they don't get it. But the 3 woes are pointing to the 3 wars, the 3 world wars. The first world war has happened, the second has happened, and the third is about to kick off. So we see then that there are 3 woes in the scriptures. The first woe is found in Revelation chapter 9, and the book of Ezekiel chapter 38, and Revelation chapter 16, and Joel chapter 3, and Revelation 6, and 2nd Ezra chapter 13. So I've just given you chapters that you can go and study at your own pace at some point. We're going to try and touch some of those today, time allowing. But if we go first to Joel chapter 3, the book of Joel chapter 3, and we're going to read verse 1 on down. Again, I say to you that this is a compact teaching, so you're going to have to move very quickly, because I'm going to slow it down as much as I can. If I'm going a bit too fast, don't hesitate to say, if I, slow down or whoa, and I'll slow down a little bit. Let's read, if you please.
The book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 1. For behold, in those days and in that time.
So it says, in those days and in that time, read.
When I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem.
Notice what it says. He will bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem.
That's right.
So what he's saying is that this has happened already.
That's right.
Did he not bring us out of captivity? So he's saying that he's doing it, he's going to be doing it again in those days and in that time. Those days is coming. That time is coming. And we're near that time now.
That's right.
That is going to get us, who are the captives, and bring us back into Jerusalem again. Now, scriptural reference of that will come from the book of Micah chapter 4 and 3. And we're going to go there very quickly, just so that we can tie it together. Micah 4 and 3. When you have it, say, I have it.
I have it.
Let's read.
The book of Micah, chapter 4, verse 3. And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears unto pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
All right. So it's telling us of a time that's going to come. Let's go back. So now we're going to read Joel chapter 3, and we're going to read verse 2. Watch what it says. Read for me.
The book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 2. I will also gather all nations, and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat.
Now the word valley of, it says Jehoshaphat here, but it's actually Yahashaphat. It means Yahashaphat. Yahashaphat, which means God's judgment. God's judgment. Yah's judgment. That's basically what it means. Make a note of that, because again, it's a word that you want to subscribe to what you're reading here in verse 2. And then it says, read.
And will plead with them there.
The word plead does not mean he's going to beg. It means he's going to put them under judgment. He's going to bring them under great subjection. Read.
With them there, for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
Parted his land, meaning they have brought about what we call today the Suez Canal, and they parted the land of Africa from what they today call the Middle East, which is not the Middle East. There is no such thing as Middle East.
That's right.
There's no such thing as a Middle Eastern. It does not exist. It's a man-made fabricated term. Well, if it's a man-made fabricated term, it doesn't mean it didn't exist, it just means I created something new. Well, knucklehead, get it together.
That's right.
We're dealing with what the scripture says. The scriptures is dealing with affirmatives, and that's what we're working with. He says, you have parted my land. But that word parted also means that they've gone into other parts of the land, such as even Africa and other parts. Well, guess what they've done? They've parted all those lands up.
That's right.
And they've parted them and said, now how did Japan and China get into this? How do they go into a land and say, we own this? They take the land and say they own the water rights.
That's right.
How is it that other nations have gone into the land and now are getting richer, and the people who live there are getting poorer?
That's right. That's right.
How does that work? It's unconscionable what they are doing.
That's right.
But let's read on nonetheless. Read.
Verse 3. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink.
Now notice, this is what they were doing when they cast us into slavery, going back to the era of 1619, according to the historical books. Read on.
Verse 4. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head.
So he's saying that these nations who have carried on the way that they are, they're going to pay a price. And these are the Hamite nations. From here, let's go to Revelation chapter 6. Let's go to Revelation chapter 6, and then we'll pull up some precepts, and then we'll start getting to the meat of it. Let's go.
Verse 1.
Yes, sir.
Revelation chapter 6, verse 1. And I saw, when the Lamb opened one of these seals, and I heard it as it were the noise of thunder.
The noise of what?
The noise of thunder.
The noise of thunder, which means type of war. Let's drop that right now. Run to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6 and 1. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6 and verse 1.
Wisdom of Solomon in the Apocrypha, chapter 6, verse 1. Hear therefore, all ye kings, understand, learn, ye that be judges of the ends of the earth.
See, so it's letting us know. Read it again.
Hear therefore, O ye kings.
Read, hear you kings, listen up and understand and learn learn you that be judges of the ends of the earth.
That's right.
Read on.
Give ear, ye that rule the people, and glory in the multitude of nations.
So you have to give ear, because you said that you're the ruling class of the people.
That's right.
Just read verse 3.
Verse 3. For power is given you of the Lord, and sovereignty from the highest, who shall try your works, and search out your counsels.
Now, you thought you got this power by yourself. But what it is making us clear to understand is that these nations who are ruling, who have power, it was given to them by the Most High. All these nations ruling, they are only in the position that they're in because the Most High has put them there. Read on.
Verse 4. Because being ministers of his kingdom, ye have not judged aright, nor kept the law, nor walked after the counsel of God.
Read.
Horribly and speedily shall he come upon you, for a sharp judgment shall be to them that be in the high places.
So he says, I'm going to bring a heavy judgment on you nations who have been ruling unfairly and treating my elect horribly. Read.
Verse 6. For mercy will soon pardon the meanest, but mighty men shall be mightily tormented.
Read.
For he which is Lord over all shall fear no man's person, neither shall he stand in awe of any man's greatness.
Read.
For he hath made the small and great, and careth for all alike. But a sore trial shall come upon the mighty.
What did it say?
But a sore trial shall come upon the mighty.
So it's letting the nations know your time is coming to an end, and when it does, you have hell to pay.
That's right.
They're going to pay dearly. Everything that you're seeing now across the TV waves, in the newspapers, it is all a build-up to a greater event that's on its way.
That's right.
Go from here, if you please, back to Joel chapter 3 and read verse 4. Read it again.
The book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 4. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head.
Upon your own head. From here, let's go to Ezekiel chapter 27. Ezekiel 27, and we're going to read, if you please, verse 13. 27 and 13. Now, let's see who are the people that he's going to turn everything back upon their own heads. We know it spoke about Zidon and Tyre. We know those are Canaanite nations, what we call today Hamites. All right, but let's read.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 27, verse 13. Javan, Tubal, and Meshech, they were the merchants. They traded the persons of men and vessels of brass in thy market.
So it's now letting us know that these are the groups of people who have traded, and they've used trade for many different things, not just material things, but human trafficking as well. Read on.
Verse 14. They of the house of Togarmah had traded in thy fairs with horses and horsemen and mules.
Read.
The men of Dedan were thy merchants. Many isles were the merchandise of thine hand.
Read.
They brought thee for a present horns of ivory and ebony.
Read.
Syria was thy merchant of reason, of the multitude of the wares of thy making. They accompany in thy fairs with emeralds, purple and embroidered work, and fine linen, and coral, and agate.
All these things were used as trade for people, trade for things that they needed to get the one-upmanship on a particular race of people. Now let's take this a little bit further, if you may. I want you to go to Baruch. While you're on your way to Baruch chapter 2, what I want you to bear in mind, what you just read about Javan and Tobal, these are what the scriptures call the ancient Grecians. Because we must remember the ancient Grecians, they were people of color before they became Edomites.
That's right.
So when you think that that the Greeks have always been Caucasian looking, that's not true. That's why when you look at many of their potteries, if you go to the museums, you will see on their pottery they have vases that have faces. One face on one side and one face on the other. One face will be black, one face will be white. Because they're trying to show you that we went from one type of people to another type of people. And that's why the pottery and all of the artifacts are so important. Do you remember a couple of years ago, a particular group of people broke into one of the museums in one of the Arab countries, and they walked in there and they broke up every artifact that was in
I
there.
remember something, yes.
It was in the news, it made big news, world news.
Yes.
Now, why was that important? Because what they were trying to do, they were trying to kill out all of the history memory of all of the things that would prove who certain people were. They were killing that out. So when you see that, you begin to get a better understanding of what this world is realizing and who's waking up. They're waking up. Let's destroy everything. We can't have them knowing what they're seeing now. All right, from there, let's go to Baruch chapter 2 and verse 29. Let's go.
In the Apocrypha, Baruch chapter 2, verse 29. If ye will not hear my voice, surely this very great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations.
Read on.
Where I will scatter them. For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people.
Read.
But in the land of their captivity,
Read.
they shall remember themselves.
We are going to remember ourselves. Many of us have remembered ourselves. But some fight it.
That's right.
We were with a brother last night. He was fighting us. He didn't want to believe who. But he wouldn't accept it. Period. He didn't want to know. But read on.
Verse 31. And shall know that I am the Lord, their God, for I will give them an heart and ears to hear.
Read.
And they shall praise me in the land of their captivity.
So in the land of our captivity, we've woken up and starting to praise him. Read.
And think upon my name.
Read.
And return from their stiff neck and from their wicked deeds.
Read.
For they shall remember the way of their fathers,
Read.
which sinned before the Lord. And I will bring them again into the land which I promised, with an oath unto their fathers.
Now notice, he said, I will bring them into the land again, meaning this is the second time. And now, if he says he's going to do it again, what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? If he says he's going to do it again, are we not told that the Jews are already there?
That's right.
So if the Jews are already there, that means he's already done it then.
That's right.
Right? But the truth is, the people who are there, they're not the real Jews.
They're not.
And if they're not the real Jews, it means that what he said he's going to do hasn't yet been fulfilled.
That's right.
That's right.
So he says here clearly, he says, read it again from the top.
Baruch chapter 2, verse 34. And I will bring them again into the land which I promised.
See, again, which I promised, go on.
With an oath unto their fathers.
Read.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they shall be lords of it. And I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished.
Read.
And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, to be their God, and they shall be my people. And I will no more drive my people out of Israel, out of the land that I have given them.
So he made it very clear, he has driven us out.
That's
Our scattering has been because of him, no one else.
Yes.
All right? Okay. From there, let's go, if you please, back to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5. Let's read verse 1.
In the Apocrypha, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 1. Then shall the righteous man stand in the great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him, and made no account of his labor.
Read.
When they see it.
Hold it. What does it mean then? Let's make sure that we're understanding what we're reading. It said, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him.
That's
Who are the ones that afflicted him?
Oh,
Come on, ladies and gentlemen.
The Edomites.
All right. All right. So the nations that you just mentioned, they've afflicted us. But watch what it says. And made no account of his labor. Is that right?
that's right.
Because many of our people labored for hundreds of years and still haven't been paid for it yet.
That's right.
That's right.
So that means your ancestors are owed some money, right?
Right.
Reparations.
Right?
Right.
And here's the thing. They're not going to pay you, right?
That's right.
No.
So, since they're not going to pay you, and you've labored, and now they're getting quite shocked because the same people who have been afflicted, they're now standing up boldly. Now they're hearing conversation and people talking and say, oh, no, excuse me, you've got the facts wrong. What you say happened in such and such a date, that didn't happen like that. Because now our people are waking up, male and female, and they're telling the other nations, you have it wrong.
That's right.
See, they're not used to that. They're used to you hearing it and sucking every word that comes out of their breath and believing it to be true. But watch what happens when we read the next verse. Read.
Verse 2. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear.
So what has happened when they start hearing you correcting them? They're going to be troubled. They're going to become fearful. And they will also get angry.
That's right.
Because they want to know, where did you get this from? We didn't give it to you. Read.
And shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for. And they shall, and they, repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit, shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision and a proverb of reproach.
Read.
We fools accounted his life madness, and his end to be without honor.
Read.
How is he numbered among the children of God?
Read.
And his lot is among the saints.
Now they're wondering, how are you accounted to be among the children of God? How did you get there? We wonder, how are they naming you to be among those people?
That's right.
Called Jews. How are you getting there? Read.
Verse 5. No, verse 6. Therefore have we erred from the way of truth, and the light of righteousness have not shined unto us, and the sun of righteousness rose not upon us.
Read.
We worried ourselves in the way of wickedness.
We what?
We worried ourselves in the way of wickedness.
So they worried themselves in the state of wickedness. Go on.
And destruction.
Read.
Yea, we have gone through deserts where there lay no way. But as for the way of the Lord, we have not known it.
See, they admittedly know that they have not known the way of the
That's
Lord.
right.
They don't know it. Let's go back to Joel, chapter 3 and 8. Joel chapter 3, verse 8, let's read.
The book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 8. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off. For the Lord hath spoken it.
Right, let's get a precept for that. Run to Deuteronomy chapter 13 and 7 real quick. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and 7.
Yes, sir. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 7.
Read.
And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee.
Read on.
And thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day.
Read.
And the Lord thy God will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land, for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over thee with good.
He will do what again?
For the Lord will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers.
So he's going to do it again now for the ancestors.
Come.
All All right, from there we're going to go to Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 44. Again, if you have a question, do not hesitate to ask those questions. Let's go.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verse 44. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you.
So, again, the scripture's making it clear, because in Christianity, they don't believe there's going to be such a thing as slavery. They believe that slavery will be completely abolished. Here, it's making it very clear that slavery is coming back. It's coming back.
That's right.
Not just regional slavery, but worldwide slavery. And it says, both the bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathens. The word heathens means other nations that are around about you. They are going to be your slaves.
Isaiah 14.
Amen. Read on.
That are round about you, of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids.
Read.
Moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they begat in your land, and they shall be your possession.
They shall be what?
They shall be your possession.
They shall be our possessions. And read on.
Verse 46. And ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you.
So the same way that when we were in slavery, our children became an inheritance for their children.
Right.
That's what's going to happen to their children.
God.
They're going to be passed on. So as you have children in the kingdom and your children grow up, you're going to pass on a batch of slaves, next generations, to them.
God.
And they will have, and these people will stay within your means. Now, what does that mean? What happens after the 1,000 years? That means when they go back to their own land, they're still going to be subject to you.
That's right.
So wherever they go, they're going to be subject to you. You have a house out there in their own land, they're going to be subject to you there. Hello?
That's right.
No escaping this.
Yes, no.
Read on.
To inherit them for a possession, they shall be your bondmen forever.
For what?
Forever.
See? So even when they go back to their own land, they still are going to be serving you. Because many times when you read this, they're going to go back to their own land, and you think, well, that means we won't have any more slaves. No. No. Because some will go back to their own land, but you'll keep a whole batch of them. You're not going to have 20. You're going to have 100,000s you're going to have.
That's right.
Now, that's hard for us to grasp now. And again, if you still have Christian thinking, that Christian thinking is going to make you think, well, you know, we've got to show kindness and love and all the rest of it. That's not what the scriptures is speaking about. And if you think that way, you are going to be destroyed, and you will come back by way of birth in the kingdom.
That's right.
You will be destroyed real good. And I'll prove that later on. You're going to be destroyed.
That's right.
Because he's looking for those who have his heart and his mind. Are you understanding this, ladies and
Please,
gentlemen?
sir.
Read on, officer.
But over your brethren, the children of Israel, ye shall not rule one over another with rigor.
So over our brethren, there was no ruling over us. Now, why does it say that? Because in the kingdom, there are going to be hierarchy levels. So there are going. So just like in this society, you have the super, the ones who are ruling class, and then they come down to your middle class, and then you come down. So even in Israel, we're going to have the same thing. But it means that even though you are the higher ups, it doesn't mean you come down to those who are on the lower level of Israel and say to them, well, you're going to be my slave. That will not exist.
That's right.
Because we will never have our own brethren like that. Because our own brethren themselves, who are even in the lower classes, they will have slaves from their nations.
Right.
Is that making sense to you, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's skip that now and go from there and go to Sirach chapter 42. I told you that this is a heavy teaching. Some of you are not going to get it. Some of you are going to fall asleep. And unfortunately, if you fall asleep and you miss it, don't ask me in the future.
That's right.
I'm speaking to you brothers out there now. Good. All right, let's go.
32.
So Sirach 42 and 5.
In the Apocrypha, Ecclesiasticus, known as Sirach, chapter 42, verse 5. And of merchants, indifferent selling, of much correction of children, and to make the side of an evil servant to bleed.
Read.
Sure, keeping is good.
Now, do you understand what that meant? Let me back up, because again, you've read it, but you don't get it.
Sure, keeping is good.
What does it mean? Read it one more time for me, please, officer.
Yes, sir. Verse 6. Sure, keeping is good.
Read verse 5 again.
Verse 5. And of merchants, indifferent selling, of much correction of children.
Much correction of children. Go on.
And to make the side of an evil servant to bleed.
It says, and to make the side of an evil servant to bleed. What does that mean? Yes, ma'am. You beat them until it bleeds.
That's right. That's right.
Now, again, Christianity, and the reason why I keep putting Christianity back in there, because it's easy to see that if someone is all caught up with that in their head, they're going to say, oh, we can't do our brothers like that. What? You have a question, sir? Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, I was just going to say, because the other scripture for that is, he will give you to rule over them with a rod of iron.
Oh, rod of iron. Find that in Psalms. And when it says rule over them with a rod of iron, that's literal. That's not figurative. That's not symbolic. I had someone turn around and said, how do you know what's symbolic and what is? Because you seem to be picking and choosing. I said, no, it goes according to the scriptures. And this is not for you. That's why you can't get it.
Got it.
Jump down, if you please, to verse 8.
Full Psalms.
You got Psalms?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and read it. Read it what you got. Thank you.
The book of Psalms, chapter 2, verse 8. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel.
There it is. You will have there'll be no qualm. There'll be no one going, brother, slow down. No. But you'll watch and you'll be saying, go on, hit him some more. Give him 2 more. Be all up in your spirit and you give him 2 more. In fact, let's leave them at time. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians 2, and we're going to read verse 11.
The book of Ephesians, chapter 2, and verse 11. Wherefore, remember that ye being in times past.
So, you must remember. Remember that you being in times past, you were Gentiles. Were is the operative word. You were. You're not now. Read.
Gentiles in the flesh.
In the flesh. Read.
Who are called uncircumcision.
Read.
By that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands.
Read.
That at that time ye were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel.
Now the word aliens, hold that, run to Exodus chapter 18 and 3 for me, just read that. Let's see what that is. A little quicker for me with your sword.
Yes, sir. Exodus chapter 18, verse 3. And her 2 sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom. For he said, I have been an alien in a strange land.
See that? So now that we've got that, and we go back to Ephesians chapter 2 and 12, let's read it again, officer.
Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12. That at that time ye were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world.
See? So it's making it very clear. So, and the reason why that verse is so important for you to highlight, make note of, and also get the reference for Exodus chapter 18 and 3 is because you're going to get people turn around to you and say, and give you a whole nother rhetoric, and it has nothing to do with this.
That's right.
I've heard that mess. And here it's telling you that we were once aliens. We were once strangers. That's why it opened up earlier on in verse 11 and said, wherefore remember that you being in times past Gentiles in the flesh.
Right.
Because you lived uncircumcised. Because you were in other nations that would forbid you from doing from circumcising and following all of the law, statutes, and commandments. You find that in 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and 6. All right, so from here now, let's, in fact, let's read on. Let's read on a little bit more. So let's read verse 13. Ephesians 2
Ephesians chapter 2, verse 13. But now, in Christ Jesus, ye who sometimes were far off.
See, you were far off. People are far off. Why does it say that? Because we were not in our place. Go on.
Are made nigh by the blood of Christ.
Made nigh by the blood of Yahushua. Go on.
For he is our peace, who hath made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us.
See, so what separated us has been broken down. Are you getting a bit hot in here, ladies and gentlemen? You are? All right. Well, that's just if we go on, brothers. Just go and crank it up just a little bit. We don't want to go freezing into an ice box now, but you know what? We'll just turn it up just a little bit. All right. Sometimes that freezing cold will make everyone wake up. All right. Let's go. In fact, let's skip that. Go back to Joel chapter 3 and verse 9. Joel 3 and 9. Let's go back there, please.
The book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 9.
Now take note of what we're going to say. Read.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles.
So it says, proclaim this among the Gentiles. Watch this now. Read.
Prepare war.
What?
Prepare war.
Oh, but we're Christians. We mustn't prepare for war. We hate war.
Prepare war.
But it says you must prepare yourself for war. Isn't that something? All the other nations are preparing for war. Do you know that? All of them. They're all, look, the amount of people I've come across that are buying tents and buying up Bunsen burners or camp burners and pots and dry provisions. There was a brother I saw on YouTube. He lives in an apartment in New York, and he opened up he's got a wall, and what he's done, he's filled it from top to bottom with rations. He's got a gold pack, and he says, if anything happens, he said, I'll bust this thing open. He said, I'll take this out and that, I'll put it in this and I'll put it in that, and he said, I'm off. He said, I can do all this in less than 5 minutes. And he said, he hasn't got to worry about a thing. Now, but we now, you know what Jake's doing?
Nothing, sitting around looking.
We still having barbecues and carrying on like that and enjoying life. We should be preparing ourselves for war. War is coming. And I don't know how many times I'm going to say to get it into our mind. You know, our people are the hardest people to get through to. I mean, it baffles me. Go ahead, sir.
I'm trying to make this quick. They're flying F-16s and other things right over the ship channel and stuff right now. Nobody is paying any attention.
Right.
What are these things called? Warthogs?
Yeah.
You know, and I found that out from somebody that was saying that the other day. Said, well, people aren't knowing, but they're getting prepared right now for what they think is getting ready to happen.
Because people recognize that there are some very definite signs happening. The scripture here tells us, read it again, read verse 9 again.
Joel chapter 3 verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords.
Now, when it says Gentiles, by the way, for those scoffers out there, let me let you know, that's speaking about us when we were living like Gentiles because we were still in captivity.
That's right.
And then it goes on to say, verse 10,
Beat your plowshares into swords.
now he's telling us, you've got to have yourself a sword. The scriptures is telling us to get yourself a sword. Have something to defend yourself should that time ever arises.
That's right.
Meaning it's going to happen. I've spoken to the brothers about certain things. They know what I've spoken about. And, you know, whether they wish this or not, it's up to them. I know I got me together. Go ahead. The sisters say they want to be included. Yeah, and you know what, sis? I repent and I roll in the dust with this. I'm going to include you with that. And I'm going to be sharing some stuff with you. Why? Because it's all, if the brothers don't wake up, then I know the sisters will.
That's right.
Hello. Because you see, we've got to recognize when the time comes to go, you know, it would be funny if the brothers are scrubbing around to get stuff together, the sister says, excuse me, let me just put this backpack on. Well, I'm out.
Yeah.
And brothers are wondering, where do you get that from? Well, I've been putting it together for the last 6 months, the last year.
That's right.
Because you have to be ready. It says prepare. And then watch what it says. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into what?
Spears.
Read, sir.
Let the weak say, I am strong.
So let the weak say I'm strong. Now, this is a double connotation because it's also speaking about other nations who once were weak and now saying, we're strong. Because those other nations now are saying, listen, we've got our nukes.
That's right.
They're now saying, we've got some F-15s. And we've got a whole military silo filled with weaponry.
That's right.
These weak nations are now saying that they've got their stuff together. So you see the double connotation here? We've been ready, but also them being ready also? Well. Anyway.
Verse 11.
Yes, let's read that, sir.
Verse 11. Assemble yourselves.
Do what?
Assemble yourselves.
That means get yourself together. Read.
And come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about, thither, because thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord.
Oh, it's making it real clear.
That's right.
Let's go to Jeremiah 28 and 8, please. Jeremiah 28 and 8. Jeremiah 28 and 8.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 28, verse 8. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence.
That's what we do when we go out there.
That's right.
That's why when we're on the street speaking to the brethren, this is what happened before. So people think what we're doing is new. They think, oh, what are they doing there? It's happened before.
That's right.
You know, it's funny, isn't it? Some things that we think, why do you think Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun? Because our brothers went out there before. And what were they out there trying to do? Wake up our people when they were in captivity.
That's right.
But read verse 9, read.
Verse 9. The prophet which prophesied of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known that the Lord hath truly set him.
Has truly sent him. Let's go from here to Exodus chapter 15 and verse 3. Exodus 15 and 3.
The book of Exodus, chapter 15, verse 3.
Read.
The Lord is a man of war.
I'm sorry. Did I just misread that? Read it again.
The Lord is a man of war.
But I thought you said he's a God of peace, he's a God of love, he loves everybody. No, he doesn't. He doesn't love everybody. And he's definitely not a God of peace at this point. The time for peace has not yet come. He spent the last 2,000 years, Yahushua, getting himself together, gearing up his mind and his spirit, because he's coming back for blood.
That's right.
All right, I'm going to deal with it. Okay. Let's read it one more time.
Exodus chapter 15, verse 3. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name.
The Lord is his name. Let's pull some precepts in case someone out there is saying, that's only one time you see that in the scriptures. That's in the Old Testament, not in the New. Well, let's help you out.
That's right.
A Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 8 and verse 15. Wisdom of Solomon. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 8. And what did I say?
Verse 16.
Good. Let's read.
16.
15.
15. The Wisdom of Solomon in the Apocrypha, chapter 8, verse 15. Horrible tyrants shall be afraid when they do but fear of me. Salaki, when they do but hear of me. And I shall be found good among the multitude, and valiant in war.
And do what?
And valiant in war.
So I see the word valiant, which is bravery, in war. Letting us know that there's a real war ahead. Are you seeing this, ladies and gentlemen? I should have highlighted that. I didn't highlight it. Let me do that now. Valiant in war. All right. Let's go from there. If you need to do it, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Did you have a question before?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go from here to James chapter 5 and 4. James chapter 5 and 4. For all those who said, well, that's in the Apocrypha, it's not in the New Testament. All right, let's go.
The
Let's
book
read.
of James, chapter 5, verse 4. Behold, the heir of labor, of Salaki, behold, the heir of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath.
Read on.
Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter.
I'm sorry. Did it say a day of slaughter?
Have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter.
So even there, we're seeing slaughter, which is war, basically, right? Right? For time purposes, let's run from there to Psalms. No, let's stay in the New Testament for a quick moment. Let's go to John 4 and 24. John 4 and 24. John 4 and 24. Let's read.
The book of John, chapter 4, verse 24.
Read.
God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth.
God is a spirit, that we must worship him how?
We must worship him in spirit and in truth.
And in truth. All right. Well, that didn't say what I was hoping it would say, but my bad. Let's go to Psalms 46 and 7. Psalms 46 and 7. Good. 46 and 7. Yes. Go ahead.
The book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 7. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge.
Is what?
Is our refuge.
He is our hiding place.
Selah.
All right. James 3 and 1. No, sorry. Judges 3 and 1. Judges 3 and 1. Judges 3 and verse 1. Yeah, that's it. That's more like it. 3, 1, and yeah, let's read 1 and 2. Go ahead.
The book of Judges, chapter 3, verse 1. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them.
Now notice, these are the nations that the Most High left. Why did he leave these nations around? Because he's going to use them to train up Israel into a position of war. Read it again, sir.
Judges chapter 3, verse 1. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them.
To prove Israel by them. Go on.
Even as many of Israel as had not known of the wars of Canaan.
So they didn't know of wars. Canaan being the Africans. They just didn't know, because the Africans were some of the greatest warriors on the earth. Because remember, they go all the way back to Nimrod. Now, read on, watch it now.
Verse 2. Only that the generations of the children of Israel might know.
Might know, read.
To teach them
What?
war.
To teach them what?
To teach them war.
To teach them war. Read.
At the least such as before knew nothing thereof.
There it is. So he wants you to know war. He wants you to know how to fight. He wants you to know how to get into a position of defense. Read it again, sir. Read verse 2 again.
Judges chapter 3, verse 2. Only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, that at the least such as before knew nothing thereof. Namely, 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians.
All right, let's stop now. Now, so it's saying that we have to learn to fight. So our fighting ability is going to be equal to those men that were great in war. Now, there is a book, by the way, there's a secret book that's called the Book of the Wars of the Lord. That's in the law, by the way. That's in the law. Now, I know we've already been there, but go back just one more moment. No, let's put time. Revelation chapter 19 and 11. Revelation chapter 19 and 11. Because of time. 19 and 11. Watch this now.
Revelation chapter 19 and verse 11. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war.
So, war is done in righteousness, according to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. So it's done in righteousness. So anyone who's saying that there can't be a righteous war, then you go back and tell me what was Richard the Lionheart going out to Jerusalem fighting in that war. And they call that a righteous crusade. And here, the scriptures tell us that. Read it one more time.
Revelation chapter 19 verse 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war.
See? Now remember, all of the nations right now are getting themselves. Okay, let's go back and read Joel chapter 3 and 9, 10, just for a quick minute. Because as I said, it has a double connotation, but I want to show you that. Let's read verse 10 again.
3 and 10?
Yes,
3 and 9?
3 and 10.
Yes, sir. Joel chapter 3 verse 10. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears.
Now, the reason why that's so important for you to also understand it, because remember, many of the nations who were just agriculturalists, China being one of them, Japan being another one. Japan was more of a warrior nation than China. That's why at one time Japan nearly ruled over China, because they had came up with they had the samurais and all of that. But here's what we have to understand. These nations are no longer agricultural.
Sure.
They become very nuclear. And nuclear how? Because watch what they have done. They have now found themselves in a situation where they have all of the top nuclear armaments. Now, let's see if we can list some of the nations that have it. Iran, Iraq, they have nuclear capabilities, right?
That's right.
North Korea,
That's right.
nuclear capabilities. Pakistan, nuclear capabilities.
Right.
France, nuclear capabilities. India, nuclear capabilities.
Right.
England, nuclear capabilities. Russia, they all have nuclear capabilities. All of the nations once, the people, where especially this country, thought that they could lord over, they now have nuclear capabilities.
That's right.
Because what happened was, when America bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when they did that, it horrified them. They saw that this country was the most powerful country in the world.
That's right.
And they recognized that if they didn't submit to America, America could do the same to them.
Yeah.
But today, they can't do that. Why? Because they have the same thing. And they have what's known as ICBM missiles.
That's right.
Which means intercontinental ballistic missiles, meaning they can go from one continent to another, no problem.
Yeah.
But they have missiles now that can do different things, such as explode in the air and then send out other missiles that can go even further.
That's right.
Now, isn't that something? You said the missile that goes all the way up to the continent, but it's not going to be one big bomb. It kind of dismantles itself in the air and shoots out other missiles that all have an assignment to go to other areas.
That's right.
And they can wipe out, like, see this area we're in, Texas, can wipe Texas out, no problem. And Texas is the biggest state in the U.S.
That's right.
So you can imagine what the capabilities are. And these countries have it. So are they fearing America? No, they don't fear America. Not anymore. Yes, question, go ahead.
This scripture addresses the swords and the knives, but what about the chemical? Is there scriptural references?
Yes, indeed. And you're going to see that all of here in the scripture we're reading, it's speaking about the hand-to-hand combat stuff. But the scripture speaks about the things that are not hand-to-hand, but things that are more chemical, more explosive. The scripture gives us all of that, and the time allows us, we'll get there too. So, with that in mind, go to Isaiah 54 and 16 for me, please, sir. Isaiah 54 and 16. I told you this is a heavy lesson.
Yes.
And it cannot be done quickly, and it's not one of those that you're going to stay up and you've got to stop yourself from falling asleep. But you guys that didn't sleep good last night. All right, so let's go now. Isaiah, what did I say?
54.
And 16. Let's read. Watch this now.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 16. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth, the coals in the fire.
And notice what he said. He said, I, Yahweh, have created these men and women. Because so many of the scientists that create these things, they're both male and female. Yes. They've created it and they've done it so that they can throw people off their game. So watch what they've done now. Read it again for me, please.
This is Isaiah chapter 54, verse 16.
Read.
Behold, I have created the smith.
I've done what?
I have created the smith.
I have created the smith, male and female, women and men. Read.
That bloweth the coals.
That do what?
That bloweth the coals.
They blow coals. Read on.
In the fire.
In the fire. Read.
And that bringeth forth an instrument.
And do what?
And bringeth forth an instrument.
And they're bringing forth instruments.
For his work.
For what?
For his work.
For his work. Read on.
And I have created the waster to destroy.
The waster to destroy. He said he has created it. He has created the waster to destroy. All right. So in order to touch up with some scripture now, let's go to Psalms 91 and 6. We're coming right back there. So Psalms 91 and 6. Let's go ahead, please.
The book of Psalms, chapter 91 and verse 6.
Go ahead.
Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday.
So that's back to your question that you just asked. We just read about the hand-to-hand type combat things.
That's right.
The knives, the swords, and so on. But now it uses this word. Read it again.
Psalms chapter 91, verse 6. Nor for the pestilence.
Nor for the pestilence.
That worketh in darkness.
Now pestilence, it's more disease-based, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says those disease-based weaponry, he said they walketh in darkness. Read.
Nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday.
At noonday. All right, so read on a little bit more.
Verse 7. 1,000 shall fall at thy side.
All right, 1,000 shall fall at thy side. I'll deal with that a little bit later. I don't want to go into that right now. But let's go back to Isaiah 54 and 16. Read it one more time, please.
Isaiah chapter 54 and verse 16. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy.
All right. Now, when we read the next verse, watch what happens. This is your insurance policy. Read.
Verse 17. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper.
So he's letting you know, I've got you covered in that day. I've got you covered. How has he got you covered? Because you won't see or be in a position where it's going to come nigh you. But let's read it nonetheless.
Salaki. And every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment.
In what?
In judgment.
So there will be tongues that will rise against you in judgment. Read.
Thou shalt condemn.
They will be condemned. Read.
This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord.
So this is a heritage, meaning you inherit this when you do the work.
That's right.
You inherit this when you do the work. Go on.
And their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord.
And their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. Any questions on that, ladies and gentlemen, before we go forward? Any questions? All right. From there, let's go to, let's run back to Psalms, chapter 7. Psalms chapter 7. And let's put more meat on the bones. Psalms chapter 7, let's read verse 12.
The book of Psalms, chapter 7 and verse 12. If he turn not, he will whet his sword.
He will what?
He will whet his sword.
Read.
He hath bent his bow and made it ready.
Now what does it mean, whet his sword?
Blood.
Blood.
Cut.
It means to sharpen. Go on.
Verse
If you
13.
need to make notes, go ahead and do it.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Verse 13. He hath also prepared for him the instruments of death.
That you just read ties in with Isaiah chapter what?
That was
54 and what verse?
16.
16. Right? So that's your precept right there. You want to make a note of it. Isaiah 54 and 16. Read verse 13 again, because that's what it's tied into. Go ahead.
Psalms chapter 7, verse 13. He hath also prepared for him the instruments of death. He ordaineth his arrows against the persecutors.
So, what you're seeing there is that the instruments of death he has ordained, he ordaineth his arrows against the persecutor. Now, you and I both know that they didn't have, they're using words in their day that was more of a commonality to them. They didn't understand that the arrows that they saw were in fact nuclear missiles. And you know, a nuclear missile has a pointed tip and it has a tail at the end, and it's quite long. So that's why he called it arrows. And he was right in doing so, because he was using the information that was clear of his day. Because remember, when they had those giant crossbows in their days, they had big arrows that could shoot into a wall.
That's right.
See? So they had that, but they couldn't understand, why is this arrow giving off flames at its tail? That they couldn't understand, because they were being self-propelled. Because they knew that an arrow had to be shot from an instrument. But then when you read verse 14, well, I got you. Read verse 14, what does it say?
Verse 14. Behold, he travaileth with iniquity, and has conceived mischief, and brought forth falsehood.
So he has, so let's look at that. He has done what?
Behold, he travaileth with iniquity, and has conceived mischief.
In other words, trouble.
And brought forth falsehood.
Falsehood. In order to get that, you have to read James chapter 1 and 15. We don't have time for that right now. Your question.
Isn't this the sword also the word? And you know how the prophets of old, they would speak a thing into existence, they would speak and then it would come to pass. The
Yeah.
Yahweh would speak.
Yes. Now, the sword is, yes, it is also the word. But you will find that, in fact, let me just get the scripture that was killing me the other night to find. That, yeah, if you read 17 and 13, watch what it says.
This is the book of Psalms, chapter 17 and verse 13.
Because you've got to get it in the right context, because sword may mean words from mouth, but it also means something else as well. Go ahead.
Arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down. Deliver my soul from the wicked.
From the wicked, read.
Which is thy sword.
Which is thy sword. So the wicked acts as a sword for the Most High God as well.
That's right.
The wicked acts as a sword. Because the wicked, they are used by the Most High God to scourge us. All right. For time purposes, let's move along. Let's go to, we're in Psalms. Okay, we've read that. Let's go to Revelation chapter 6 and 12. All right, the meat of where I wanted to go to. Revelation chapter 6 and 12.
Revelation chapter 6 and verse 12. And I beheld, when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood.
Now, the sixth seal, it represents destruction. It also represents Jacob's trouble. The sixth seal represents destruction. Jacob's trouble. And it also points to the start of World War III. World War III. read it one more time.
Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. And I beheld, when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood.
The moon became as blood. Okay, that is dealing primarily with the rulers of that time. Let's take it a step forward. Make a note of this whilst we're at it. It says that the moon became as blood. In history, the blood moon is a sign of the day of the Lord's calamity. You will also find that you're going to see more and more blood moons appear coming up to the time of his return. I remember one time we were coming from camp, there was a huge blood moon that was out there.
That's right.
And it was very visible. But what's going to happen as the time moves forward, you're going to see more and more appearances of the moon in blood.
What does it mean, Sir Pastor? I'm going to write notes. Blood moon means.
Can anyone tell him?
The sign of the day of the Lord's calamity.
Okay. Yeah.
And you're going to see more and more blood moons, which is culminating up to the Lord's return. You're going to see it more and more and more and more and more. Let's go back to Joel chapter 2, and we're going to read verse 27. Joel chapter 2, verse 27. All right. All right, everybody cool enough? All right, good. All right, go ahead.
The book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 27. And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel.
So he's making it very clear that he is in the midst of Israel. Go on.
And that I am the Lord your God.
And that what?
I am the Lord your God.
And that I am the Lord your God.
And none
Now,
else.
why is that so important? He said, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God.
To assure us that.
No, remember what I said.
Oh.
Say again? Yes, because if he says, I am the Lord your God, that then means that he can't be everybody's God.
That's right.
Read it from the top, please.
Joel chapter 2, verse 27. And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God.
I'm the Lord your God. I'm not everybody's God. I'm the Lord your God. Go on.
And none else.
And no one else. Read.
And my people shall never be ashamed.
And he says, and my people. He doesn't say every people. He doesn't say everybody on the planet. He says, and my people. Read.
And my people shall never be ashamed.
And they shall never be ashamed.
That's right.
Let's go from here, if you please, and go to 2nd Ezra chapter 5. 2nd Ezra chapter 5. We're going to read verse, we're going to begin at verse 8. 2nd Ezra chapter 5, begin at verse 8. Let's read.
In the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra chapter 5, verse 8. There shall be a confusion also in many places.
Now, why is that word important? Because when war comes, war creates confusion.
That's right.
Now remember, in times past, wars were won by, that's why they had drums, they had they had trumpets, they had elephants who would blow their trunks, and the noise would bring about confusion.
That's right.
But read it again, if you please.
2 Ezra chapter 5, verse 8. There shall be a confusion also in many places, and the fire shall be oft sent out again, and the wild beast.
Hold it. Read it again, and let's read it slowly.
Yes,
Watch
sir.
this. Read.
There shall be a confusion
There shall be confusion
also in many places.
in many places. Now, is there confusion in many places right now?
Yes, it is.
Yes, there is confusion in many places. Now, the next clause you should all be aware of. Read.
And the fire,
And the what?
and the fire
And the fire, read,
shall be off.
shall be off. The word off here means often.
That's right.
Now, what's going on in California right now? Fires are breaking out there like crazy.
Come
What about Israel?
on.
Say?
In Israel.
Yes. All over the world, fires are starting up. Even in Canada,
That's right.
fires often. Why is that? Because the Most High has sent the angel of fire out there. Because remember, there's an angel who's over the water, there's an angel who's over fire. That's why I remember when the Most High, when the Hebrew boys was in the fire, the angel of fire was present to take the heat out of the fire. The fire was still burning, but the consuming heat was not there to destroy them. And if the angel of fire is there, fire cannot harm you.
That's right.
Like the angel of the waters. You can be in the waters and the angel of the water can stop you from drowning. You could be right at the bottom seeing everything around you, but you're not drowning. Because that angel's job is to secure you wherever you are. There are angels that are over different stratas of the earth. Please keep that in mind.
That's right.
That's why when certain phenomena happen, you won't turn around and say, oh, make it a big thing. For us, it shouldn't be a big thing because we are children of Yahweh.
Come.
The scripture says we are children of the Lord. Read on.
And the fire shall be oft sent out again, and the wild beast shall change their places. And the minstrel.
So what does that mean? The wild beasts have changed their places. You're going to see beasts in places that we've never heard of them being here. You're going to see mountain lions come down and walk around in the cities and be in the cities and attack people.
Right.
Bears are going to come down, come out of their regions, come into the cities and walk around. People say, but what's that grizzly doing here? Because the Most High has done it. You're going to see snakes that normally are in certain parts. They're going to come into the cities. Things that normally they would be in their own place of order, they're going to change their places. Read it again.
And the beast shall change their places.
You see that? That's the scripture being very, very clear. That's why sometimes when we read scripture, we can't read through it quickly. We miss it.
That's right.
So you think about certain, scorpions that would exist. Now all of a sudden you open up your bread can. Oh, there's a scorpion there. You go outside to sit and think, and they're going to invade because they are a part of the day of calamity also. So when you read that, go ahead.
And minstrous women shall bring forth monsters.
And so you're going to see children are going to be born that are going to be defected. They're going to look like monsters. And the people in the hospital are going to say, how could this be? What's going on here? Yah has done it. Let's go back to Joel, chapter 2 and 31.
The book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 31. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes.
So that day is coming, because remember, We're already seeing the signs of the moon and things taking place right now. Are you seeing this?
Yes, sir.
Read on.
Verse 32. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord.
Do what?
Call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered.
Shall be delivered.
That's good.
Notice it uses the word delivered here and not saved yet. Now one could argue and say, well, the word delivered and saved are the same thing. But not in this case. Because if something, I could deliver you out of something, but it doesn't mean war is still not crashing down around us and we could still end up losing our lives.
That's right.
But it says, read it again, so it shall be delivered, and continue, I should say.
Yes, sir. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance.
So it's letting you know who deliverance is for.
That's right.
Yes.
Read.
As the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call.
And the remnant is the elect.
That's right.
Let's go to Acts 2 and 16, just very briefly. Acts 2 and 16.
Question.
Go ahead.
So it says name of the Lord. Does that literally mean the name of Yahweh Shaddai Mashiach or Yahweh? I mean, you know, we call by Jesus and other names.
All right. It says the remnant whom the Lord shall call. Is that what you're saying?
Verse 32.
No, you'll notice that remember the key element that we must remember. The word Lord has to be spelled a certain way for you to differentiate whether we're speaking about Yahweh or Yahushai. So when we read it here in 32, it says, and whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord, that is a capital L-O-R-D.
That's Yahweh.
So it's Yahweh,
So
as
literally
Father,
calling on Yahweh by his name,
by his name.
but many of us don't know his name.
But for those of us that do know his name, now some of us have refused to know his name. It's not that some of us don't know his name, by the way. Some of us have refused to want to, because some people get upset. When I say Yahweh, I know a whole lot of people that get upset. I can see their faces getting discontorted by it. But that's his name. That's why it says, hold this real quick. Let's deal with that. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 4. And then have Psalms chapter 19 and 55 in readiness as well. All right. So watch this now. Please make a note of those scripts, please. Go ahead, sir.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 30, verse 4. Who have ascended up into heaven?
Read.
Or descended? Who have gathered the wind in his fist? Who hath bound the waters in a garment? Who hath established all the ends of the earth? What is his name?
What is his name? Read.
And what is his son's name, if thou canst tell?
If you can tell this. So when we get to Psalms 119 and 55 now, watch what it says.
The book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse 55. I have remembered thy name.
I have what?
I have remembered thy name.
So he's going to make us remember his name.
God.
Those who don't or choose not to, because they are being stubborn. Remember, we are, the scripture says, a stiff-necked people.
That's right.
So even though I'm telling you his name is Yahweh, guess what? You're going to, no, I believe his name is Yehuda. There's people who are saying that. And here's what's so terrible about it. And some of them are calling his name where there's an E in it. There's no E in Hebrew. So how are you using an E there? Oh, but according. Because we become stubborn and we don't want to hear what our brother is telling us. Because we won't be told by our own. Now, if all of a sudden Esau walked up to us and started to tell us, oh, yes, Esau, you know. But that's how we are. It's like Yahushua. His name's not Yahushua. His name is yeah. And we know there's no J. There's no J. J is a new invention.
That's right.
But this is our people. Did you finish that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Isaiah 42 and 8, real quick. Isaiah 42 and 8.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 8. I am the Lord, that is my name.
That what?
That is my name.
Now, the reason why he said, I am the Lord, that is my name, he's saying that because when they wrote this, they took out his name and put the word Lord in. So let's say it says in the original, I am Yahweh. Now read it.
That is.
Read it like that. I am Yahweh. Go on.
Salaki. I am Yahweh. That is my name.
Now you see, that's how it should have been reading now.
That's right.
But if they take it out and then put in Lord, you'll say, what? So Lord is a name? Lord is not a name, it's a title. But wherever you see the word Lord is, that's where they removed his name and put the word Lord in. Read it one more time with how you just expressed it.
That's right. I am Yahweh. That is my name. And my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images.
There it is. So that's why we've stumbled into this dilemma. Make sense now, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so
Acts 2?
Acts 2?
2 and 16.
2 and 16.
Yes, sir. The book of Acts, chapter 2 and verse 16. But this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel.
That's why Acts is confirming that what Joel said, this is what we're now experiencing. This is what we're now experiencing. So, what was the last scripture that we read in Joel?
That was Joel 2 and 32.
2:31?
2:32 was the last one.
Oh, very good, good. So I'm on track then.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to Revelation chapter 6 and 12. Let's go back there.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
The book of Revelation, chapter 6, verse 12. And I beheld, when he opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth.
And the sun became black as sackcloth. Go on.
Of hair. And the moon became as blood.
And the moon became what?
As blood.
Now, the stars that the scripture speaks about, that we've read several times today, the stars are the ICBM missiles. Because remember, I just explained to you one of them. When a ballistic missile goes up and goes from one continent to the other, then it has the ability to dismantle itself and shoot out hundreds of others. And then they start to spark because they're obviously, they've been ignited and now they're going to their new destination. And it looks like stars up there. And they shoot off to the directions that they've been ordered or assigned to go. This is what John saw, and it was fascinating to him. He didn't really know. And that's why when we go back to Isaiah chapter 34 and 44, and let's read.
34, 44.
Isaiah 34, 44.
Yes, sir.
Isaiah 34 and 4. And 4 and 4. That's 34 and 4.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 34, verse 4. And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved.
And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, destroyed.
And the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll.
And so what Isaiah, now remember what John is seeing what Isaiah saw, and Isaiah is seeing what John saw.
Right.
So then he says, and the heavens scroll together. In other words, that was a mushroom cloud.
That's right.
A mushroom cloud, just folding it and folding and enfolding, and like a scroll. And then he said, and what?
And all their hosts shall fall down,
And all the host fell down,
as the leaf falleth off from the vine.
as the leaf does what?
Falleth off from the vine.
Read,
And as a falling fig from the fig tree.
read.
For my sword,
For my what?
for my sword
For my sword, read.
shall be bathed in heaven.
Now I'm mentioning this to so that to go back to the word sword to again further explain the point. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Read.
Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea.
Calm down on who?
Idumea.
Idumea. Who is Idumea?
Edom.
Edom. Read.
And upon the people of my curse.
So there are people of his curse, and that's Edom. Read.
To judgment.
To judgment. Read.
The sword of the Lord
The
is
sword of Yahweh. Because it's got capital L, capital O, R, a D. Read.
is filled with blood.
Read.
It is made fat with
Read.
fatness.
Good.
And with the blood of lambs and goats. With the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord have sacrificed in Basra, and a great slaughter.
Now let's back up just a little bit, because we're kind of shooting over some things. So it says it is made fat, which means swollen. All right. So it's made fat. All right, swollen, and that means overflow. All right, when something is fat. With fatness, right? Overflow is fatness. Go on.
And with the blood of lambs
Blood of lambs
and goats.
and goats. So lambs being those who are of us who were stiff-necked. Goats being those who were always bucking up against us, other nations.
That's right.
Got that?
That's right.
And then it says, read,
With the fat of the kidneys of rams.
read.
For the Lord have a sacrifice in Basra.
And Basra. Basra was the capital city for Edom back in that time. The capital central point. Read.
And a great slaughter in the land of Idumea.
So he's going to slaughter them. He's going to slaughter them. Is that making sense to you, ladies and gentlemen? All right. So, if that's clear now, let's go to Revelations chapter 6 and 14.
Yes, sir. Revelation chapter 6, verse 14. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain is Salaki, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places.
So it's speaking about the government. The governments were moved out of they were displaced. The government no longer now were in that position. These are people, and it says, and the heaven departed, and the scrolls and the mountains, and every mountain and islands that were moved out of place. Now, why is that also important? Because the double connotation to that is people were hiding in the mountains.
That's right. And
they have their deep, what they call deep underground military bases. See? DUMBs, deep underground military base. Remember, they've got places underground that have roads, streets, and cities under the ground. You will never go to them. But these are for the top people. Do you know that even people like Bill Gates, they will try to save him? No one would Somebody said, well, Bill Gates, what's he going to do? Well, they're trying to save his mind because of the fact that he's the inventor of those things. They're trying to keep people who they don't want to destroy or get killed, because after the war, after everything, they want these people to emerge and help rebuild everything again. See that? So these are some heavy things that we're dealing with here.
Verse 15.
I'm sorry?
Verse 15.
We're going to stop there.
Okay.
Because as I said, this is heavy, and I think there's only so much meat,
Yes, sir.
like when this is heavy, to take in. And we'll have to do a part 2 on this, okay? We may do it tomorrow. Go
But
ahead.
Bill Gates only has that mind because Yahweh.
And he only has that mind because Yahweh gave it to them.
Fine.
That's correct.
And he once said that we have to get rid of the poor people too. He says too.
Well, he said we've got to get rid of a third of the people.
Right. Overpopulation.
Yeah.
And they all think that way.
That's right.
But remember, they got it from the scripts.
That's right.
Because the scripture says that the Most High is going to destroy 1/3 of mankind.
Yeah.
1/3 of mankind is going to be destroyed from the entire earth. And, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. No,
But
please go
they're
ahead.
trying to make decisions, and he's already decided who it's going to be.
Correct.
They're
Oh, yeah,
trying to
he
come
wants
up
to-
with their own version of who it should be.
Absolutely.
Us.
Because they feel like the people who are, you see, right now, society makes us to look like we're worthless. And to be fair, we look worthless. We do look it. Because if you were just to judge us based upon how we look and are, well, the conclusion, everybody would come up with the same answer. But that's only because society has become so destructive to our people.
That's right.
But there was a time when our people were in a greater contributory position. That's why when you think back at, listen, some of you may or may not know the story. There's a gentleman, he was a biologist. No, he was a botanist. He dealt with flowers, and you tell me if you know his name. He dealt with flowers, and he would always say that the flowers spoke to him. But he was a great friend of Henry Ford. And remember, Henry Ford didn't invent the first car. It was a black man who invented the first car. But Henry Ford was the first man to make one particular model of car very popular as a high-selling car throughout all of America. Now, he went to this particular black man, and he said to him, have you got any ideas that can help me expand my business? This black man said, okay, give me a while, let me think about it, and I'll get back to you. Remember, he was a good friend. Now, if ever you've heard him speak on some of the old recordings, he sounds like a woman. Don't say just yet. He sounds like a woman. He's got a high-pitched voice. And many people mocked him for years with that. And they also thought he was gay. He wasn't gay. It was just that when he was a boy, the slave owners, he got caught outside certain boundaries, and they castrated him. They double castrated him, by the way. And the reason why you lose your voice is because double castration does that. Not single castrations, double castration. And so he spoke with a very high voice. And so he got back to Henry Ford, and when he got back to him, he said, I have something for you. He said, if you set this up like thus and thus, and have like a long chain, you can produce more cars, and it will be called a plant. Now, isn't that something? It was called a plant because he was involved in flowers. And that's why today the very name has stuck. That when you speak about a place that produces more than one thing, it's called a plant. It was a black man who created that. Henry Ford from that time on produced more cars than any other car distributor in the United States of America and the world. And he gave partial credit to this black man, but never gave him really. And guess what? The black man, because we're so dumb, or I should say naive, he gave him the rights. Do you know that that rights alone would have won him in every country in the world? Wherever there's a plant, he would be getting the feedback monies for that. Now, do you know his name? You can't just blurt out anything.
No, I didn't say anything.
Okay.
I said you told us.
Okay, get me upset now. All right, so do you know who it is?
No.
By the way,
no.
Do you know who it is? Huh? All right, listen.
I believe it was George Washington Carver.
It was George Washington Carver. He was one of the greatest botanists in this country. In fact, the world. But never got credit for it. And why do I put that point out there? Because there was a time that our people were so productive, but we never got credit for it. And if we had ever got credit for half the things that we had invented and brought out, we would be the highest paid people in this country. And so I've got to cool down my get your blood going. Because when you think about all the things our people have invented, do you realize that no one could touch us? Remember, the so-called Idumeans who rule this country, they've never contributed. By the way, here's another quick story before we go offline. The original Indians of this country were people who looked this color.
That's right.
They weren't red, they looked this color. They were very dark people. Do you know, when the Caucasians came here and they were they were called settlers, and they were trying to live in certain parts of America and Canada, they weren't so much, they were dying. In fact, they were dying a great deal. Guess what they did? They went to the Indians and asked them, how do you agricult the land in order for things to grow, that you get things during the summer and then also can grow things in the winter? It was us who showed them. And we showed them how to do it. And that's how they learned to become farmers. Do you think the Idumeans came with farming skills? No, they didn't. And do you know that we brought some of our farming skills from the old country over to here?
That's right.
So along with us and the Indians, can you imagine? And all those things they don't teach us in the schools. And that's why our people are miseducated. And if you don't teach our people that you were great contributors to how this country has been developed, what do they then do? They recess themselves into a backward position and not be as outwardly progressive as they could be. Our people have become that. And that's why if you look at us today, when we're a shadow of who we were in the days that we invented and brought things in and were contributors. Even in the medical field. Half the things that's going on in the medical field, it's our people who invented those machineries, those actions, those instruments, and you know what? Our people have never got credit for it. Listen, right down to the very spatula that used in our kitchen. It was a black woman who invented it and made it.
Right.
Can you imagine how much money she'll be getting today worldwide from a spatula?
That's right.
Especially the hamburger eating people of this country.
Yeah.
It goes on even today in the medical field.
That's right.
They glean off of us, our knowledge, the people who have seasoned nurses and doctors. And then they take our knowledge and they take credit for it.
Absolutely.
That's how it began.
Yeah.
The black woman is the one who showed the world how to nurse the children. And they knew that they would give their babies to our women to nurse them.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
Because they
Going all
had,
the way back to Egypt.
Exactly. Because they knew that your bodies were more enriched than their own bodies. So they would feed their children. They would have you feed their children because they knew that they would survive.
The milk that was in our women
Come.
was so potent,
So rich.
That's
right.
that when they fed their children, their children were more healthy.
That's where they get their strength from. They still get it from us.
Do you know what's happening in Europe right now? In Europe right now, the Europeans are dying.
That's right.
Yeah.
Their scientists said it. So you know what they're now pushing? They're pushing the European men to marry black
Black
women.
women, yes.
Come.
Yeah.
It's become a big push over in Europe now.
Yeah.
Because they know that within the next 50 years, their people would have diminished so greatly that in 100 years, there'll be very little so-called Caucasians.
It's happening in Japan too.
It's
All them
happening
countries.
here. It's happening here.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as the black man makes it, a
Absolutely.
white woman comes and
Absolutely.
marries him and then produces, and then she knows she's going to be well taken care of.
Absolutely. The so-called white woman now has married all our top athletes and celebrities, and they've gone on. But you see, it's because, well anyway, let's leave that alone. Let's leave that alone, because that opens up other doors. We need to stop. But I hope, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that you have enjoyed this teaching. We're going to do part 2 of it on tomorrow on Pentecost. Because obviously we want to finish this, we want you to understand. And I'm going to also tie in what Pentecost is with the closing stages of time. What is the purpose of it? And but we hope that you continue to listen and enjoy our channel. On the behalf of Soldier Dwayne and myself, we want to wish you a very happy and blessed Passover and Pentecost, and we hope that you continue to listen to our channel, subscribe, and what's that thing that they do? They take the what do they do? They take the thumbs up button. That's it. That's it. So I'm getting used to it now. Is there anything you want to say, officer, before we dismiss?
Before we get dismissed, we still want to give all honors to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, to all the brethren out there. Please keep the charge, subscribe and share, and also comment. Keep the faith, and remember, it's in Proverbs chapter 7, verse 2, keep the commandments and live. Shalom.
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 Shalom.